Welcome back to Two Brown for This with Harman and Rav. Thank you to all friends and family for listening in and tuning in. And on today's episode, we're going to be deep diving into my best friend Rav.
Change the way you say that.
So,
Sending off the wrong message there.
we're going to be diving deep into what makes Rav Rav. So Jinx, like, I'm not gonna say his name for the next 40 minutes, and you guys will just have to sit there and listen to this. Why are you laughing for? I said Jinx. Welcome to your podcast, Rav.
Let's get this podcast started. My name is Ravjeet Singh Sayan, and my backstory is as relatable as they come. I come from humble beginnings, grew up in Handsworth, Birmingham. For everyone who knows. Educated at a public school.
You mentioned that you were born and raised and brought up in Handsworth. What was life like for you growing up in Handsworth?
It was a ghetto as they come. You'd see crime, you'd see police everywhere. Even on our road, there were riots. If anyone can remember the 2011 riots, our road was one of the roads that got attacked. All the windows were smashed in the houses, and yeah, so growing up wasn't the most prestigious life you could ask for, but I had lots of love, I had lots of support, I had family, people I could talk to about anything.
But mentioning school, what's the earliest thing you can remember that's more interesting to yourself?
I think the first thing was that you were one of two kids growing up. You either mixed with everyone, regardless of colour or age. Sometimes you had year 9s that would chill with year 11s, or you're a brown guy, you chilled with all the other brown guys. If you're a black guy, you'd be with all the other black guys. And I think that's the earliest memory I kind of have of my school days.
So a lot of what you're saying is people had their groups growing up. You felt like you had to be a part of one certain group, then the other. You had your cliques that you kind of chilled with, essentially, right? Like, obviously you mentioned the riots and what being brown brings with as issues, as well as obviously your friends and family are there for you, but also brings the stigma behind a lot of the Western world having doubts and these kind of protests and riots happening around our lives as well. So did anything like that ever happen in school for yourself? So while you were chilling around in these groups, did it ever occur where some group of people had a problem with the other group of people? Did anything like that occur?
I used to look at these groups of people and think, okay, do I mix in with the other browns, the people who are supposedly like me? I used to socialise with anyone. If I liked you, it didn't matter what colour you were. If I liked you, and that's about it. So even then, that would lead me to not have many friends, because I was never in a group, so to speak. I was just with individual strangers, but I think I was happier that way.
Yeah, and I think, obviously I went to the same school as you, and I think we had quite a good time there. Like, everyone got along with everyone pretty much, especially in our year group. Everyone essentially chilled with everyone. Speaking about school, this is one of the things that brown parents listening to us right now especially will want to know. Were you good at your studies, Rav? Were you the model brown child that grew up to be a doctor?
I didn't grow up to be a doctor, but I grew up to be an engineer. Got an engineering degree, but I don't really work in my field of engineering. But yes, I was very good in school. And all us brown guys, we've just been gifted with some sort of intellect. Don't know where it comes from, but
it's all the shit that we get from our parents, bro. If you don't do well in school, the bill is at home. Before you get roti, you're gonna get shit there from.
Yeah, so growing up in an ethnic household, standards were very high in terms of what you'd get from school. And that's kind of how your worth was measured. I think ethnic minorities have never cared too much about whether you're happy or what your mental state is like. It's more about how much money do you have? Do you own a house? That's probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
I remember everyone's parents used to say, "Oh, just gotta let you off and that's gonna solve all your problems owning a house and stuff like that."
Yeah.
So
as long as you get an A star in your exams,
then
you'll be fine.
You'll be fine for the rest of your life. It'll be easy to get a job.
You don't need to learn any life skills as long as we see an A star on that report.
Yeah, so that was kind of the first point in my life where I noticed the resistance, because I didn't have to work that much during even my GCSEs, even to my A levels. We didn't have to work that much, and that lack of work ethic really started showing when I got to university.
That just reminded me of the time we're getting a maths and physics sessions in, and we're coming up with all the answers in school. You know, we're like top of the class, but outside of class, if you asked us if we did our homework, bro, we didn't even know where our bags were. We didn't know where we were.
We had to ask everyone for pens.
Yeah, we didn't know. We didn't know what lessons we had, fam. we used to look at all our friends and we're like, "Oh, do you know what lesson we have today?" And like, was there any homework? I think that kind of gives you, in a nutshell, what our school life was like, especially with Rav and me. A lot of it was that naturally, as Rav just mentioned, we had a lot of talent towards the academics. However, talent only gets you so far. You also have to work hard, which your parents beat you up about all the time. Which is true, because essentially what they're trying to get into you is hard work will take you places where talent won't.
And that's 100% true. In my first year of university, I started learning that if I'm going to get anywhere, I have to work. And that's where I discovered self-improvement. That's been, I think, one of the most interesting things of my life, is that all my, terrible experiences, at university, I used to always leave my work to the last minute. Everything used to be chaotic.
I'm glad that you mentioned self-improvement, especially when it came up to uni, but let's backtrack a bit to young Rav. I want to know, and I think everyone else would like to know where that came from. So why don't you take us back to the time of, did you ever feel helpless as a young man? Did you ever feel like you had to improve on yourself? Where did that mentality rise from? Because I want to know what made you tick the way you do right now.
I think every brown guy can relate to this. Even as a brown guy growing up, you're one of two people. You either grew up stick thin, or you were the chubby kid in school. And we used to get picked on so much. I used to get picked on a lot for being skinny. And I think that's where I first started thinking about self-improvement, that I gotta go to the gym. I gotta start getting buffed, you know what I mean?
Our own mothers used to tell us, you're too skinny. Why don't you eat something? You don't eat desi ghee. That's why you're too skinny.
And then all your relatives think that being, obese is healthy, and being having a flat stomach is patla. That's unhealthy.
Tell me if this is true, where you've worked hard, you've just started gym, you've met a new relative or someone that you haven't seen in a while, and they're looking at you like, "Oh, marna ho gaya? Why are you looking so thin for?" And you just want to crawl into your bed and not show your face from all the hard work you've just done.
Yeah, so that's where I first started my self-improvement journey. I started going to the gym. Actually, it started with press-ups, because we were 12, 13. We had no money. Couldn't go to a gym. You had to be 16 to go to the gym.
That's where it all starts.
We started doing press-ups. Even when we used to get changed in PE, I remember us two, we'd be getting changed, and all the black guys, they'd have shoulders and abs and chest, and even the white guys would have like a bit of chest definition and six-pack and stuff like that, and all the Indian guys would just be fluffy. We'd all have like a bit of a dead, your dead is sticking out. You know what I mean? You've got no muscular definition at all. Your shoulders are really narrow and stuff like that. That was another thing. Growing up, I felt that the cards were stacked against us because of our genetics, because of how we grew up and how we had to work so hard, even from a young age, to just even look normal. So I'd say that's where it first started.
I think a lot of it comes down to genetics as well, won't you say? As a younger man, when you're growing up, you don't go to the gym, you don't control your diet, so what you have is what you've been given genetically, right?
I think even in the media, I used to grow up watching films like Rambo. I used to watch Arnold. I used to see, even what was his name, the German guy? Rocky films.
Yeah, from the Rocky films. Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to look like those guys.
Yeah.
We used to see, The Rock. You see all these people, and you used to. Next thing you know, you start realizing that some of these guys take gear, some of these guys have help, some of these, these guys.
In all of the names that you mentioned as your role models, I should say, growing up, none of them were Asian. None of them were South Asian. What do you think? Do you think that kind of subconsciously made you think that brown guys or South Asian men, we don't have much representation? What do you think about that?
I think it made me think that it was crazy to believe that a brown guy could look like that until I actually started seeing those changes in my body myself. And that's kind of why I started the page as well, my fitness page, to show other brown guys that, look, it is possible for us.
And for all the people that do not know, Rav runs a social media page. You can find him on TikTok and Instagram on
Cyan.training.
And he helps all South Asian men overcome their genetic potential, be the best version of themselves. You mentioned you were looking up to Rambo, obviously Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Cut that bit. I'm going to refer to him as Arnold from going forward. I do apologize. So, you mentioned you were looking up to these guys. So, as a young man, you feel like what you're trying to describe, and I would like you to speak more about this, is that body confidence was your first step into being who you are?
I'd say yes. But even as a Sikh, growing up, we're told all these stories of our ancestors. And even Sikhism is one of the youngest religions. All of the events of Sikhi only happen in the past 400, 500 years. And we hear stories about, how, like, Bhagat Singh, and there's so many names and so many heroes who have done so many crazy things. And it kind of made me think about how there's no one like that today that I could look up to. All these ancestors, they're gone and they're watching us, but I don't think I've had much representation that just like me, who look like me, walk like me, talk like me, act like me, who are doing the things that I want to be doing. So it did kind of make me feel a bit delusional, so to speak, to think that I could deserve these things and put in the work. And I've always had the idea that if I worked hard and put in the effort, I could get anything that I wanted. And that's one of the benefits of living in the Western world as well. Even though we say, we're too brown for this.
Yeah.
You really, really can. With anything you want, you put in enough work, you put in enough hours, you always get the result. But I think the thing that we need is not more advice. We don't need more diet plans. We don't so much of that out there already. And that's not what we're trying to push. We're trying to push representation. That we're too, I'm a normal guy. We come from the same school. We've learnt the same things. Anything that I do, you guys can
Interesting, Rap. So, being a normal guy, as you mentioned, and focusing on self-improvement, what real-life examples do you think you can mention that you've come across in your life and your experiences that you'd like to tell the audience?
I think what a lot of brown guys are going to relate to this. Even if you're not brown, I think every single guy is going to relate to this. That as soon as we turn 17, what do you want to do? You want to pass our driving test. We want to get cars. Me and you in school, we used to check every single day in the mirror, look at our beards and see if we made any progress and stuff. So when I was like 17, 18, that's literally all I wanted, or all I thought I wanted. I just want a car, and then I want a beard. And then as soon as I got those two things, guess what? I started wanting other things, and it wasn't, the novelty of it wore off. So I think as my self-improvement journey has kind of gone on, I've had a big realization that self-improvement is not what I kind of chalked it up to be in my head. I've focused self-improvement so much on real life achievements. We look at the cars, we look at the fame, we look at the success, and we think that that's his self-improvement. But true self-improvement is what it says on the tin: self-improvement. If you don't pray enough, you pray more. If you're not grateful enough, you practice being more grateful. You practice being more mindful. You practice emotional regulation. All of these sorts of things. So that's kind of where I am on my journey.
Circling back to the beard part, I just wanted to focus on that really quickly. Do you remember when you initially started getting those like little bits of hair, I wouldn't call it a beard. I don't think anyone would call it a beard. But you know when you get like those initial hair and you look in the mirror and you think, wow.
Yeah.
I don't want to shave this off ever. If you're a younger guy listening to us right now and you are trying to grow your beard, shave that off for now. Let it shave it off. Keep your face clean until you've got some more maturity, you know, hair follicle maturity. Shave that off for now, please.
Do the goatee.
Yeah, do the goatee. That's the safest bet
Yeah.
to go for. Just let it grow out naturally as you grow older.
I done the goatee till I was 22. And that's when my beard started coming in.
I had the unfortunate event where I let it be as it was. I didn't shape it. I didn't do anything until I was like 18, 19. And I tell you, I kid you not, it looked like a dead rat was sitting on my face, bro. I should have listened to my mom. To be fair, do however you'd like to do it. Whatever your facial hair be, do whatever you guys want. As long as you feel confident, that's all that matters. Because as Rav just mentioned, that's what self-improvement is. It is self-improvement. It's what you think you can improve on. Moving on to a bit more of a recent event was, I think everyone would also like to know, moving on from high school into college, into uni. I think that's a big turning point for a lot of brown guys in our generation, as well as the next coming generations. It's that shift from going from a tight schedule of, I need to wake up, go to school, come back, do my homework, whatever it is that you do, then moving into kind of being responsible for yourself, for your own education. Obviously, how did you manage all of that while also keeping the train of self-improvement going? What type of things did you have to sacrifice on? What challenges did you face through uni? I think everyone would also like to know some good stories, maybe into some personal details. I think a lot of Indian girls are out there waiting for you to let them know some details there. But I think, yeah, let's get started with that. Take us through your experience of coming into as a young adult.
Right, so right off the bat, everyone will relate to this who's been to uni. The first thing, it just hits you like a truck. Go from teachers are always chasing you for homework, they're always telling you do this, do that, revise this, revise that. And when I got to uni straight away, there was none of that. The lecture was delivered, that was it. The work was set, and it's like you just got thrown in the deep end straight away. You had to go from being handheld a lot during, your upcoming school years to, oh, this is it now. You're responsible for your own education. You're paying for it. You get what you get out what you put in, and then that was it. So,
and do you feel like you were prepared to be put into that sort of environment? Do you feel
no? Because as I was so good academically, I kind of, when I got to uni, I still had the same mentality that, oh, I could just wing it and then revise for my exam 2 days before, and then and I'll be done with it, right? I was shocked when that was not the case. So so that's when I really had to start thinking about managing my time, but also while I'm working hard. And to be fair, it has been pretty easy for me to work hard and sacrifice things like going out and having fun and stuff. But the one thing that was really difficult for me was to balance fitness, self-improvement, university work, social life. I got self-improvement into my head so much, it kind of spread like a tumor into all the other parts of my life, where I didn't care about enjoying myself. I didn't care about having experiences. I didn't care too much about even dating and lifestyle and even fashion and stuff like that. All of those things kind of took the back burner while I was just going full speed ahead into the grafting, and I worked while I was at uni as well. Yeah. And
do you feel like any of that hindered any parts of your life growing up? So obviously, I feel like almost now I'm going to play devil's advocate here, is self-improvement is what everyone should aspire to do every day in their life. But do you feel like there was almost like a negative aspect of being too consumed with the idea of if you're not self-improving, you're not doing something right.
You hit the nail on the head there. I think every single journey in life, every single path you take has that potential to do more harm than good. Just like with gym, you've got some people who are such like they're so die hard with their plans that when they go out, they won't eat anything because what you're eating doesn't fit into your diet, or it's not the right time. When you go out or you have a family event, but it interferes with your gym schedule, so you're just thinking, should I go?
I got gym, yeah. We've all been there. I think we've all made excuses here or there in our lives to pursue something where we were unhealthily obsessed with something. And what I've seen as you've grown as a person is you've gone through that obsession of self-improvement to try and better yourself, to kind of doing a 180, almost a U-turn, like a Yui. Doing a Yui. Into balancing it a lot more. And as with all things, anything in excess is bad. So I feel like, and I think everyone would like to know how you do that and how you manage to do that. So you've essentially, from what I can see, and I think from what the audience can tell, is you've gone from learning and getting into self-improvement in your early days to getting to a point where you're unhealthily obsessed with it almost, but you've now managed to balance everything, and it's almost like a superpower when you do unlock that balance, isn't it?
Life always moves forward, but only ever makes sense in retrospect.
Yeah, that is.
So even if I say I've been so focused on self-improvement and how bad that was, and coming to a balanced life now, was it really that bad if it's allowed me to be able to make that decision now? Because had I not focused on self-improvement, had I had everything balanced, I'd be a different man than the man that I am today. Would that man be better or worse? I can't even answer that. But that's the one thing that I want to put out there as well, is that never beat yourself up too much about these things, because you'll always feel like, I shouldn't have skipped gym, I shouldn't have done that, But these things you only ever have those feelings in retrospect. And that feeling will always be there regardless of what you do. When you take a day off work, you think, I should have worked. When you don't go to the gym, you think, I should have gone to the gym.
Like, almost like a what could have been.
Yeah. That sort of thing. So that's a bit of a grey area, but I'd like to hear your guys' thoughts on that.
And do you know what the coincidental thing is? That is exactly the motto I live by. So we'll go more into that in my episode, which will be the next one that's coming out. But I agree with you 100%. It's something that essentially I go through with life, where I say, any choices I ever make in my life, I'm not going to regret this, because at the end of the day, the person I end up being is the person I chose to be. And I got there by doing the mistakes or the good things I did in the past, which is, I think, what you're trying to say. So, yeah, guys, let us know on Twitter, on Instagram, under our posts, on the reviews on Spotify, or on the comments on YouTube. And use the hashtag 2BFT to let us know what you guys think about this.
Done.
No, we're still going. I think we're still going. You think we are done, boy? You think we are done? I've got you for 24 hours. I have him locked here, guys. Joking, guys. Obviously, don't report me to any social securities.
Long form podcast content is completely new to both of us.
Completely different ball.
You guys can kind of even tell in the podcast that we have no idea what we're doing here.
These guys are probably listening to us and be like, "What rookies, fam? Why am I listening to this? Why am I wasting 30 minutes of my life listening to these two brown guys?
I'm too brown to listen to these guys.
I can go to my local Indian restaurant and hear the exact same thing. It all sounds the same to me." So about corporate and coming into current Rav's story, why don't you tell us about how getting into self-improvement, who you are as a person, going through the challenges in life, how is current Rav doing and what is he up to? You can delve into it as much as you'd like, but I think the listeners would love to know more about who Rav is right now and what is he up to in his spare time.
In my spare time, The one thing I'm up to now is, no shadow of a doubt, facing my fears.
Coming up with some real life examples, why don't you tell us what's something that you used to do, which you have now improved on?
Be in my head a lot. I think, especially even with body positivity and, getting called skinny in school and stuff like that, I think it creates a mindset where we become obsessed with what people think of us. And I think it's a thing that's in South Asian culture a lot. A lot of your worth and value is dependent on whether you own a house, if you're married and have kids and stuff like that.
How you're perceived from
if we got someone in this generation who's 30 or 35, the first question you get asked is, have you found anyone? Are you looking to get married? Have you bought a house?
No, it is a genuine thing that I feel like you've improved on. Being in your head a lot. I think a lot of our listeners will also relate to that. Being in your head about a lot of things, feeling like you're not good enough, beating yourself up about things because you feel like you have to show a certain persona to the outside. What is something you were beating yourself up about? For example, you mentioned body positivity. How did you actually actively improve on that? What steps did you take? I think our listeners would like to know how does Rav tick? What has Rav done to achieve that progress?
One thing I've done was detach myself from the outcomes.
That's a great shout. I think that is something that a lot more people need to get into, is detaching themselves from the outcome.
So long as I've been doing the work that I said I was going to do every day, regardless of the outcome and regardless of what happens, I'm actually happy now doing that. If I say that I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. and go to the gym and I've done it, I'm proud of myself and I have that purpose every single day and I achieve what my purpose to be. And once you get to that point, the outcomes come naturally, and then that's the point where you don't even care too much about what the outcomes are.
That is something I think we all take a lesson from. Me personally, I think that's something I look up to in a person, is when they detach themselves from the outcome. They don't rely on the results to define their progress. They rely on their systems. Take us, for example. Before we started this podcast, before we recorded the first episode, right? We had to build our systems in place. The first episode recording day, this is the second one. The first one, Rav wasn't very well. This man still showed up to my place to get this podcast recorded while having cold and flu. Obviously, you might not be able to tell. You might be able to tell, but this man showed up just because he's got those systems in place and his passion for the things that he does. So he showed up. He made sure that it was recorded. Then the next thing to happen to us was our file actually got deleted the day before we were due to release. And what did we do? Did we delay the podcast? No, we did not. Because both Rav and I believe that if you've set yourself up for something, do not set yourself up for failure.
Set yourself up for success.
Exactly. And the way you do that is by relying on your
systems.
Exactly.
Right, so going back to when I was in primary school, I think the first kind of feeling of being too brown for this was when I used to see school kids mixing. When kids grow up, we just mix with anyone, even boys and girls. We don't even differentiate boys, girls, adults, older, younger. None of it matters. We literally just talk to the people we like and we socialise.
It's that sweet innocence, isn't it, as a kid?
And I think especially with South Asian, I know it happens a lot in South Asian households where we're told from a very young age, don't mix with certain types of people. Actually, one of my best friends growing up in primary school was a guy called Tyrese. He was a black guy, so I mixed with Asians, I mixed with blacks, I mixed with whites, I mixed with everyone, and I've carried that all the way through my life.
So,
I've never...
When you were told these things, obviously it's more innocent than people might presume them to be. It's not something that our families are stopping us from doing. Mm-hmm. I think they're just trying to get us to stick with our people, Asians, because that's what they've grown up doing. If you're from back home, All they've seen is South Asians. If you're here, they're trying to get into the South Asian cliques. So how did them telling you these things make you feel personally? Did you feel like, no, I want to go against it? Did you feel like, no, they're right, I want to do that?
I think that at the start, because as a kid, I didn't know 5% of what I know today, or even 1%. It was one of the first things that you said that I felt like, oh, I need to go against this. Looking back now, our traditional grandparents, they would have come to this country, never have spoken the language.
They were the original too brown for this.
Yeah, and then they would have had to only mix with their own, because you can only speak with your own. We built shops in our areas which are predominantly South Asian. That's how these communities have survived. So our parents were passing on the survival knowledge to us, that this is how they came to the country. This is how they, with no money, not even speaking the language, how they managed to buy a house, start a business. So it all comes from a good place. It's never come from a bad place. But I never used to view it like that. I used to think, oh, my mom doesn't want me, getting in trouble with these people, and stop me from having fun, and stop me from having...
It's that young rebellion, isn't it? You want to go against what your parents are telling you.
Yeah, but as I've been looking back now, I've genuinely realised that, and I said, you know what? We give our parents so much like hard time.
Circling back to the point of feeling comfortable with what your parents advised you to do, when you did mix up with people of other cultures, other backgrounds, did you feel normal? Did you feel like this was fine? Are you still in that mindset, or did anything change? Did you agree with your parents' views, or as we've grown older, society's changed a lot more as well? Everyone's mingling with each other, which is a great thing. What are your views on it from then till now?
I think depending on who your parents are and who your family is, so my family is pretty more modern than traditional. They have the capacity to be as modern as a British person, but as traditional as a brown person who's too brown for this. When I had, my friend Tyrese, my mom, shout out Tyrese, we haven't spoken in years, when he was in primary school, we didn't have any phones or anything, so I have no idea what that guy's doing. But
hope you're doing well and you're listening to this podcast.
Hope you're doing well, but yeah, like my mom and his mom became friends as well.
Was it vicariously through you guys becoming friends?
They saw us playing together, and when our parents used to come pick us up from school, they must have realised, oh, like my son's playing with her son, and then when our mums picked us up, we were all kind of together, so they started speaking, and then they became friends as well. So
and do you feel like that almost reverse backfired on our parents, where they've learned from us to mingle with other cultures as much as we've learned from them to rely on our culture and our people? They've essentially 180. They did a UE.
Yeah, I think it goes to show just how adaptable us South Asians are to create, generational wealth, all of these things. We sometimes don't give our parents enough credit for how much they can adapt, even to this day.
Yeah.
We still tell them ideas and thoughts, even things about money, things about business that were taught from, our grandparents told us saved. But now, me and you, we speak to our moms about investments.
Was there any point growing up from that point of your life to the next where maybe I can't mingle with everyone, something that might have triggered that bad experience? Have you experienced anything along those lines?
I think it was where, as ethnic minorities, we do have a knack for getting into trouble a lot. I think the white kids at school were all right, man. There were a few bad apples, but it used to be us getting into trouble all the time. Or the ethnic minorities, we'd always be in the head teacher's office, and fights used to happen all the time between us. Even as brown kids would fight each other as well. We say like, too brown for this, and we mingle with our own culture a lot, but a lot of our own people sometimes don't even want the best for us, or have problems with us, don't even support us.
Did it ever change your perception of you as a South Asian man shouldn't mingle with everyone? You should reserve yourself, or did you bring it back to the point of self-improvement and think, do you know what? There's just a few bad apples here. I want to do what I want to do. We're all in this together. High School Musical shout out.
I think it's a mixture of both, because part of me knew in my heart that we should always stick together. I think I do like mixing with my own culture. To be honest, it kind of strengthened my belief into us sticking together and stuff. That's when I first kind of developed that masculine code, that we're all in this together. If we all get in trouble, we all get in trouble together. We're all going to sit in detention together. You know, so long as we do everything as a group, then, you know, we're all fine.
You have been through a lot, not with just your own culture, not with just South Asians, but with everyone. And as I know, as cringy as it may sound to say, but we were all in this together at the end of the day. I think our society has progressed into a point in time now where our generation, especially our generation, we've got a foot in both worlds.
The UK is literally one of the most diverse countries that exists
Exactly.
in the world.
Right? So, your experience, I think, what that shows me is that through all the bad apples that you might have had, the orchid still lives to be a healthy bunch of apples. Mentioning your role models that you had growing up through early years, you had Rocky, you had Arnold. That's his name. I'm not gonna try and pronounce the last name there. Didn't mention any South Asians or ethnic minorities that you had role models as growing up. What were your experiences with that perception? Were you subconsciously feeling like you had to be like these people in the Western movies? Were there any examples of people that you looked at that were ethnic, but you didn't want to be like them because they weren't made out to be the strong macho man that you wanted to be as you when you growed up?
A lot of the role models that I had growing up, I don't think there's any South Asian role models that I have had. I think the reason why is because in the media, I don't think we're portrayed as we should be. I grew up watching a show called Big Bang Theory, and you know, the one Indian guy, Raj, in the show, he's got like an Indian accent. He can't speak to girls properly. He doesn't have any success. You know, it's all like Sheldon, and I forgot what the other guy's name is, but you know, Raj always seems to just be stuck in. It kind of put like a self-fulfilling prophecy in my head that maybe we're just not meant for the successes that other ethnic majorities receive, that, you know, we're too brown to have that sort of, you know, those sorts of dreams and aspirations, because it's not even talked about in, our parents don't really speak to us about these sorts of things and stuff. Yeah, I think that's why maybe subconsciously all my role models weren't South Asian, because all of the role models who were doing the things or being the things that I wanted to do and be just happened to not be part of an ethnic minority. It's kind of forced me in a way to go away from my own culture, to go away from being proud to be brown and towards having resentment for being brown, because it puts this idea into our heads that, you know, can we even have this lifestyle that we want? Can we even achieve these things that we want? But like I said earlier, we don't need the extra advice. We don't need the extra, this is what you should be doing, 10 things you should be doing to get successful. I think we just need that representation of all of these people that we're two normal guys, we're doing it. We've started a podcast, we've started our Instagram and TikTok pages, you know. And if we're doing it, anyone else can be doing it, even if you're not you know, South Asian.
And leading on from that, do you feel more proud of your South Asian heritage now that a lot of South Asian people are represented in that way? So, for example, in the previous years, we've had some famous movies which have had South Asian actors that have, you know, glowed up. They've put on the muscle. They've shown themselves on screen to be a superhero. For example, Kumail Nanjiani, the comedian, he was in the movie Eternals. He put on a lot of muscle mass for himself and showed it off on Instagram. And I think the reaction was something that shocked everyone. Do you know?
Even us.
Even us, yeah.
I thought, how is this even possible?
Yeah.
To be honest, that like it just came out of nowhere. And when we see like people like The Rock and Sylvester Stallone and all the the white and black actors bulking up for a film, and you see them, and it's all pretty normal now. But just to see a South Asian doing that, it was just completely, it was a complete shock, especially at his age as well, which is like in his 40s.
And from what I can tell by your reaction to that, even now, is that you felt really proud, didn't you?
Yeah, it kind of cemented in my mind from seeing that one of your people can do it, suddenly makes it turn from something that feels impossible to something that feels possible.
And Kumail did this for his career. I'm sure he's had his own challenges. He's faced a lot of setbacks being a South Asian in that industry. Let's talk about your industry. So you mentioned that you've done an engineering degree, but you're not in the engineering field. You're in different fields at the moment. But do you feel like you have had any potential setbacks or even roadblocks, speed bumps, in getting to a point in your life, in your career, being a South Asian? What has that made you feel like, and how have you progressed through that with self-improvement?
To be honest, it has had much bigger of an impact than I would have liked to have thought starting off. There is prejudice. When I would submit a job application and it would ask for me to put my name, sometimes I wanted to feel like putting Ryan instead of Rav, because as soon as they see my name, they'll think, oh, he's a freshie, he probably can't speak English properly, he probably smells when he comes and smells of curry. Or even when we apply for jobs, we get the prejudice before we even get to the interview stage. When I was applying to jobs, I applied for Rolls-Royce and their Bentley, JLR. I only got to the interview stage with a few of them, and straight after, I started noticing that my CV looked great and the sentiment towards me was great, but as soon as the interview ended, I felt the sentiment change straight away, because they saw my face and they saw what I looked like. We started seeing that a lot of the South Asians weren't getting placements as fast. So I had to skip that placement year and go straight to my final year. And then when I was applying to jobs, I was applying to jobs with no industry experience.
And did that, or even to this day, does that put any sort of resentment in your heart? Or did you feel like it's not something that you resent the ethnic majority for, but it's something culturally ingrained into our world at this point in time? So what did it make you feel like? What?
I don't have resentment. It's expected. I expected it.
You expect to work harder.
I expected to work harder and overcome that barrier of being an ethnic minority in the Western world, or being too brown
for this.
Yeah. Like, there was a study, I don't know who it was done by, but it's an actual thing. You can go look it up. Because some guy in the comments is always going to be like...
He's typing it right now.
Yeah,
cancel 2BFT. They don't
who
know
reference a study
about.
And, he doesn't know who it's always come from. But there was a guy who used 2 identical resumes to apply for some jobs. And on one resume, the name was Mohammed. And on the other resume, there was a typical white name. I think they made like Charlie, or don't quote me on it, like David, or... But you know where I'm going with it. And the resume that was South Asian saw significantly less success than the resume of the guy who was perceived to be white or British. So, having known this, I expected it completely, to be honest with you. So it's not a thing that I can have resentment for if it's expected.
Now that you have managed to successfully get a job, congratulations, by the way, I'm very proud of you. Do you feel like you've managed to overcome those challenges? Obviously, you've had to work harder, but you've overcome those challenges now. Do you feel like you're in a place where you're growing? You might still be facing these challenges, because as South Asians, we're always going to face these challenges. But do you feel like you are still growing as a person?
I feel like in the corporate world, I feel like even as a South Asian or an ethnic minority in general, we still have all of the opportunities for success that an ethnic majority would have in the workplace. The only thing is that we just have to work a bit harder. I just know that I have to work a little bit harder. That's all.
It's a given, isn't it? You just have to work that bit harder, and you are ready to do that. I think that's ingrained into us as South Asians, you know, because we're too brown for this. Our moms beat into us that, you know, you have to work hard. Your parents beat you into believing that hard work is an important part of our culture as South Asians. So, what are your future prospects, Rav? What makes you want to grow further, self-improve further? What's the next big step? Give us a sneak peek into the life that you're planning. Maybe some love interests there.
Yeah, love interest, get married and have kids. That's it on that
topic. Good Indian boy there,
yeah,
right there. All the moms are getting all the rishtas for you ready,
yeah,
right?
That's
now.
it. Send them all in. Leave them on the comments. So, in terms of the future, I realised that I'm focusing less and less and less on material wealth and successes and focusing more and more and more on purpose. And I think what my purpose is not only to come on here and speak on the podcast about, you know, my experiences and see if anyone relates, but to really be a beacon of representation, that when me and you become successful, not to push it in people's faces to become successful or to do what we've done, but to be those beacons of hope that what we have achieved is possible. As a South Asian, I think even the South Asians that we have seen, like Camille Nanjiani, even he's an American, so he lives in America. So even as a South Asian, I still don't feel that full representation, having, you know, because he's not from the UK.
He's not
right?
from the UK.
Because even the difference between the UK and the American life is something you can make a podcast about. Yeah. Even for the ethnic majorities.
There's a lot of cultural differences there within our own community. I get exactly what you mean. So, what does that hold in the basket for you, Rav?
What that holds in the basket for me is continuing on my self-improvement journey, reflecting on my Instagram and TikTok page, pushing out good information and good content to our audiences, or giving all of us South Asians a place to connect, a place to have some laughs, a place to have some relatable moments, but overall a place to have inspiration and hope.
And also hide away from all our mom's shitters, because let's face it, talking on this podcast, building this community, I'm sure they'll tell us that.
Look, guys,
we deserve shitters for this.
Guys, our moms listen to this podcast. Anything that we say, they're gonna end up roasting us after.
Yeah,
even as our siblings, and
it's gonna happen. You know, they're gonna be ready with that slipper in their hand.
Our moms are gonna hear this and think, "Oh, you think we've never done anything for you? we never sacrificed anything."
They go straight from 0 to 100. So, thank you for sharing all of that today with us, Rav. I think myself, as well as the audience, have gained a real insight into who Rav is and who Rav will be.
Thanks for having me, Harman.
No problem at all. It is your podcast as well, after all, because we're too
brown for this.
Exactly. It's not
just you and I. It's you and I and the audience.
And the audience. It's the rest of the community, guys. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below under our YouTube, Spotify reviews, and our new Instagram post going live on Too Brown for This.
We're also going to be on Apple Podcasts as well. We're just sorting out the logistics.
Yeah.
We're going to get ready to drop it on Apple Podcasts.
Very soon, guys. Very soon you'll be able to listen to us yap all over again on Apple Podcasts as well.
Take care, guys.